Thank you so much and appreciation for your patience. And the panelists are right here and we are ready to go. And we'll answer your questions. I have in excess, and we've already answered tens of them and have in excess of about 50 plus already here. Definitely, if we were to answer all those questions right now, we'll have to end this webinar at about midnight or maybe at 2 a.m. But thank you so much for the interest. And so many questions as well have been answered on the go by the team. And I can assure you that no question will be left unanswered. And I'll tell you how we're going to go about it. But first, let me first ask the first question. And I know Edward will say something else on top of that. And Edward, in terms of strategy, because you spoke a lot about strategy, one of the questions I picked from Daniel Nyaga is, will the build to rent rate have any investor cutoff like the D rate? You could answer that as you add on what you would like to say about the session.
Okay, thank you, Maina. Hopefully I'm clear. Just to say that, yes, as Elvis has said, definitely we will be looking to introduce Vuka Prime for Vuka investors, but that will be later. Initially, we'll start for the build to rent. We are starting with institutional investors who've already committed a significant amount of capital for that particular segment. But let me also say that, and I think this is an important overriding thing. VUCA is an investment product. It's, as you said at the disclaimer, it's subject to certain risks, but and therefore when Elvis talks about liquidity or that returns, these are targets, and the liquidity is also, of course, never guaranteed. Like any investment product, it depends on the market at the time. But the reality is this: that if you look now over the last 3-4 years, it has shown a lot of consistency and resiliency. So it's a low to moderate risk investment. When you use the word investment, there is nothing like a no risk investment. But as you can see, there are assets backing it. There is a huge market backing it. So that's what makes it a low to moderate risk investment.
Excellent. And but just before you drop the mic, there's also a question on from Wanjiku Karanja, talking about, you have said that you're about to go to scale. Do you have projections of when you will hit the definition of skill? Someone asked.
That's an interesting question. We've hit the definition of scale. 21,000 beds is scale by any I think if we were in the UK PBS segment, we'll probably be in the top 5. So it's scale, and we've already hit it. And I think what we are now saying, that's why we are saying our focus now is moving from scale for the sake of scale to now returns. How do we drive returns? But, you can't drive those returns if you don't achieve a certain level of skill. So that that is a box ticked. Now it's about how do you optimize return to investors.
Excellent, Wanjiku, you have your answer right there. Let me come to the finance part of it, and I think I want to bring in Edward. Actually, Peter, I want to bring in this question because I saw it severally coming up, and they're talking about exchange rate risks mitigation measures. In terms of, could you quantify the future specific timelines when funding with costly debt will be at a reduced manageable level? I think this is just one of the persons who can't wait to start earning as much.
Yes, I was saying that the question has 2 components. The first component is on the cost of debt. As I said earlier, we are starting Q2, we replace the current expensive debt with cheaper debt through a corporate note, and going into the future, we are going to eliminate it with equity. With regard to future acquisitions in the IREIT, they will be funded through the DFC facility, which will be priced at between 8 to 9%, which is below the total return in the IREIT, which means that it is not dilutive to equity returns. But with regard to the first part of the question, which is the forex risk, the DFC facility, which is the one putting USD-based debt, has a very innovative forex de-risking mechanism that ensures that we don't take any forex risk. The assets are funded through an intermediated Kenya sharing instrument, which means that the REITs are not taking any foreign exchange risk.
Thank you so much for that. Elvis, there's so many questions about VUCA. I think you'll have to go and sit down and have some coffee as you answer so many of them. But I have an interesting one here because there's so many people. I think almost all of us, even Edward, it belongs to a Chama. And so there's a question here. Can Chamas invest in VUCA Prime?
Thank you for the question. So the answer is yes. A Chama can invest in Vuka Prime. You simply log into the platform, and we do have a tier named Chama, and you can start your investment again. There's as little as 2,000 bob, 2,500 shillings. Yeah.
Excellent. And then the other follow-up question as well is, how shall young investors, this is actually to Matt, they have actually specified it to you, Matthew. So how shall young investors, well, the majority, your house and them, how shall young investors benefit from the upcoming young urbanites rent to own?
Good question. I'll pick it up from where Edward left off. On the Young Urbanites REIT, initially it will be launched funded by institutional investors, clearly because it's a development REIT and there's some risk aspect to that. Later on, we will bring in an iREIT and will also offer that as part of the products that retail investors can buy into. The immediate opportunity, obviously, right now is what is there, which is a student REITs. It's been de-risked. It's, as Edward has said, we've achieved significant scale. And therefore, by investing in that, also they build some experience to when we bring in these new products later.
All right, let me come back to Edward. I'm going to do one more round because there are so many of those questions, and I promised the investors and the attendees today we'll get to all these questions, and I'll tell you how. So there's a mouthful one here. First of all, someone is saying, considering towns like Eldoret or Kakamega that have lower incomes versus Nairobi, will there be a change in your pricing mechanism as a result? And how long will these assets take to break even vis-a-vis the assets in Nairobi? Edward?
Okay, thank you. It's a very good question. The short answer is there will be much difference or change. And that's because there's still heavy demand for student housing in those places. And the interesting thing that most people don't realize is that all public universities have students from exactly the same socioeconomic groups, because they are selected through a system that, statistically, you could come from Nairobi, from Nakuru, from wherever. If you look at the socioeconomic background of students at University of Nairobi, it's exactly the same as Masinde Muliro University. So that's one of the reasons why the rentals wouldn't be much different. The other thing, if you look at a university like Masinde Muliro in Kakamega, it has about 24,000 students, but we will only have about 1,200, 1,500 beds. So it's like a very small fraction of the market. So what I tell people is, think about it like hotels chains. If you look at the pricing of Eka Nairobi and Eka Eldoret, there is hardly much of a difference, because the supply demand gap is still extremely high.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Peter, there was also a few questions for you, but I'll just pick one more. What OPEX margins are you seeing specifically for the Kijani product?
So the OPEX margin in the Kijani properties is a little bit higher than in the Kwetu Brad. When we started in Kwetu, the OPEX margin was about 27 to 30%. Because of the scale and the improvements we've done, it actually has improved to 25%. In our projections for Kijani, we have worked with about 32, 33%. But since we opened, we are seeing the possibility of even achieving 30% in Kejan.
Okay, thank you so much. Elvis, there's a very good question here, I think from one of these guys who are young investors. Is Vuka working on a mobile app?
That's a very good question. As I mentioned, I think almost every investor today asks us, is Vuka working on a mobile app? Now, the direct answer to that question is that currently not. We simply do have a web application. So you can simply visit our website, then you will get an invite to join using our web application. However, we are looking to launch a Vuka mobile app in the second half of this year.
Okay. And maybe just to qualify that question, if you develop apps, you can talk to Elvis. It might work. But Elvis, before you pass the mic, Ella Nyega was asking, does someone already in Vuka have to switch to Vuka Imara?
Again, good question. The direct answer to that will be it is not mandatory. The Vuka Prime is simply coming in as a new product offering, and investors have the choice. You can choose to complement and also venture into Vuka Prime, and you can also choose to simply stick to Vuka Imara.
So I think, Matt, there was also so many questions. I think you'll also have to get some cup of coffee and answer them, especially on percentages. But this one is interesting. I've seen it severally coming up. And they're talking about the investor mix proportions in percentage. What is that? I think they were asking you to give some color to it. I think there was a lot of that. Yes.
Okay, I think it was on the institutional. So when we launched the REITs were offered to institutional investors on a 30-70 basis. So institutional investors came in, if you 100 shillings, 30% or 30 shillings went to the development REIT and 70 shillings went to the income REIT. And for Vuka investors, because there are retail investors investing in Vuka, which is an aggregator that invests in the income REIT, 100% of the investment went straight to the iREIT platform. Yeah.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking at time, and we had promised to end this at about 8 o'clock. Now we have already moved 30 minutes more. But I just want to appreciate this. There is a whole team that has answered over 70% of the questions and will still do this. Now, this is the promise I told you I will give. What we shall do is that we shall distribute the FAQs, and even all these questions will be answered. A lot of them is about how do I join Vuka, the percentages, can I join as an individual, as a company, and the likes. And all those FAQs as well will be given to you, as we also send this particular record in to every investor who has joined in and registered. So I would want to appreciate that. But because I am sitting next to Edward, I want to give him the last word, especially to the investors, and then we can close on that. So, Edward, putting you on the spot, what's your last word today? People who are tuned in today.
Okay, that one wasn't in the query stores. I am like this. Yeah, okay, fine. Well, it's been delightful and a great pleasure to host the Vuka investors and other retail investors, people who are interested to increase and grow their wealth. And basically build a nest egg for the future, and we continue to be available for you. I believe you'll be sharing details, and as I said, the future of Africa, the future of Kenya, is in the capital markets, and I would encourage as many Kenyans as can, all those 18 million working Kenyans. And even those young people who may be students, but are thinking about starting to save. Yeah. Start early. It's always better when you start early. Start as early as you can. It doesn't matter the quantum. Investing is a game of time and compounding. So if you start early, it doesn't matter the quantum. You can grow a lot of wealth for yourself. So I encourage them to invest in Vuka and other capital markets products that are available in this country. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to a special person. Anon, you asked the most questions. I just want to appreciate you for that. You're very keen. And also to appreciate Ann Chege as well for the many questions that you've asked. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for really joining us. And I just want to end by asking that the slide on how to contact us be displayed right away. And just to remind you that the call center is open 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. You can call and ask any questions that you have How do you join all this? A lot of the questions here can also be answered in a personal way if you can call, because the call center is there. So let's make use of it. My name is Maina Chege. I have been the moderator for this particular session. It's been an amazing time. I have to say this. It's been long since I went to an investor session on a webinar and we had over 100 questions to be asked. So thank you so much for your participation, and we look forward to growing wealth. And thank you so much. If you haven't joined Vuka, by the way, please, you better join. This is your pathway to investing in regulated income earning real estate. Thank you once again and have a good night.